Let's take a quick poll down in the comment section. Do you guys enjoy when I upload later, like when we all get out of work and school and everything like that? Do it maybe like around dinner time or just thereafter? Or do you like it when I upload earlier in the day, first thing in the morning, or would you like a lunchtime upload? Let me know what you guys want down in the comment section. I want to know what time is best for you guys so we can get the videos up at that time. Now let's enjoy this video on injectors. What is going on with this cord right here? You guys probably thought that I was gonna say, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video on Pure Panorama. But seriously, hold on, I need to fix this cord. Alright, we are back. In this video, just like the last video, we are going to mess around with the 2001 24 valve Cummins injector. The last video I did, we did a complete breakdown, teardown of an injector. We got to see the internals of it and how the injector works, and I showed you guys how the nozzle spray by getting a little solution in the nozzle and blowing it with an air gun so you could see the spray pattern on the nozzle tip. So I showed you that, and then we put it all back together, and I had fun making that. It's something that I wanted to do now for a little bit, and I'm glad that I finally got the time to do it and share that experience with you guys so that you could see how simple it is to really pull an injector apart if you're having issues with an injector or you think you are. If you want to pluck them out of your truck and not waste money sending them into a shop, waste time sending them into a shop and waiting for them to come back, you can simply just dissect them right in your garage at your house. The only thing I suggest is, and it's a definite, it's a must, you must do them one at a time. Keep track of what injector came from where, whether it was the number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 injector, and make sure that you don't mix any parts up while stripping them down and putting them back together, and then make sure that you seat those injectors back in the same cylinder. That is the one thing to make sure that you do if you are going to do this. Otherwise, everything else is a walk in the park. But in this video, we are going to jump right into cleaning an injector and what you can do to clean your injectors if you think that the spray pattern is off, you're not getting the proper spray pattern, you think your truck has a miss or misfire, or you just are losing some power, you think you got something going on with an injector, it's gunked up. We're going to show you a couple of things you can do or use to get that injector cleaned after you pull it out of the truck and break it all down. So let's jump right into it. So for starters here, we're going to get this injector all separated and opened up so that we can get all the inner parts out of it. And then we are going to drop it into this dish. In this dish, I just have a little bit of kerosene. I guess from what I understand, one of the better things to use for cleaning an injector, although you can use kerosene, I haven't done this, so I don't know how well this will work. But from what I have seen and what I understand, one of the best things that you can use is actually Coleman lantern fuel. And I guess the ingredient in that Coleman lantern fuel is called naphtha. That is the one ingredient, from my understanding, that really will break up the carbon deposits on your injector and truly get it all nice and cleaned up, which is the whole point of taking your injectors out of your truck and then breaking them down to clean them, is you want to get all those carbon deposits off of there. So if I show you this one up close, you can see some carbon deposit all down this nozzle right here. It's all over it. I've gotten most of the carbon deposits out from between this body cap here and the nozzle because I already had this one apart in the last video. But if I grab this one here and I show you, there's definitely still a good bit of carbon caked on the nozzle itself and all down in this little groove there. So that is what we're trying to eliminate and get rid of, and also making sure that our nozzle tip here is nice and cleaned up so that the holes in the tip are obstruction free and we get that perfect spray pattern that our truck needs. If you haven't watched the last video yet, I suggest going and doing that so you know more about breaking down the injector and what you're gonna find when you pull this apart. I'm not going to really touch base on all that stuff in this video because we just went over that in that video. So make sure you go and watch that. It'd probably be a good idea to watch that one before this one and then come back and visit this video to see what you can do to clean these things up a little bit before reinstalling them in your Cummins truck. So this one's already all broken loose. We're just gonna go ahead and unscrew this here. Make sure that you are holding it in the upward position so nothing drops when you pull this off. And we're gonna pull our nozzle off the end there. I'm gonna pull the pintle right out of the nozzle, which you can see the little dowel there, the little alignment. So we're gonna pull that up out of there, drop it right in there, and then we're gonna drop the nozzle in there as well. We just wanna let these things soak for a little bit. Now with this stuff, you don't really see the carbon cleaning off of there or breaking off of there, but with the Coleman lantern fuel, I will say that you can see that stuff literally just disintegrate the carbon deposits, and you can see the liquid just turn black. Let's get our intermediate disc here and drop that in there. Then we're gonna pull out our compression pin, which just rides on the compression spring inside the body. We'll drop that in. We got our compression spring right here. Drop that in. And then up inside the body, underneath the compression spring, we have a little shim. So there that goes. I didn't even need to tap it. So the shim is in there. Now let's just drop the body in there and the rest of it there, our little nut. We'll let that soak for a few and then we'll get right into cleaning her up. One thing we should talk about quick is the actual tip on this nozzle. If you look at the shape of it, you can see that little point right there on the very end. This is like a VCO style injector nozzle tip. So when they have that little point with a wider base like that, it's more of a VCO style injector. That is actually the pintle seat that the pintle sits in and allows the fuel to exit the nozzle out the holes and give your spray pattern into your engine for combustion. But the stock injectors are more of a VCO style injector rather than a sack. VCO nozzles tend to be a little bit quieter and they'll allow for more power. Sack nozzles are louder and better suited for a mid-level power application, and they tend to have more longevity. So like we are talking about the difference in the shape of the nozzle tip, a sack style nozzle has more of a teardrop shape to it. Okay, so we let these things soak for a few minutes in here, like 10-15 minutes. I think with the Coleman lantern fuel and that naphtha ingredient, we'd see a little bit more progress of carbon deposits being basically eaten off of the injector parts, whereas this stuff, this kerosene stuff that I'm using, isn't quite capable of doing that from the looks of it, but I still think that we'll be able to get these things cleaned up. But if you guys want to clean your injectors and you definitely want to use a good solid product, I suggest using that Coleman lantern fuel, and I'll link that stuff up in the video description so that you can find it and go and get yourself some if you want to pull your injectors apart and clean them. But right now, let's start with this body here. We'll pull this out and we'll scrub on it here for a second and see what happens, see if we can get it to clean down. I am using a green scuff pad here. I definitely would recommend getting a softer one, like a lighter color one, a yellow or a white scuff pad, just because the material will be softer, or like a very fine steel wool would work. Especially once you get down to like the pintle and the nozzle tip and stuff, you want to use something soft. If you are going to use a green scuff pad, just don't apply that much pressure because you don't want to score the nozzle or the pintle especially. You want to be very gentle and delicate with that. I also do have an old toothbrush here that we're going to use and scrub on this stuff with just a little bit as well. The injector body isn't going to matter as much. You can apply a little bit more pressure onto that. It's when you get into the finer parts that you want to start being careful if you're using one of these green scuff pads. But these really aren't the main thing that need to be cleaned. I'm just more or less wiping this down. Also, if you're going to use a rag, make sure you're using a lint-free rag. What I'm going to use is just one of these blue shop towels to wipe these things down and kind of dry them off afterwards. But don't use a shop rag with lint and stuff like that. You want to keep these pieces as clean as you can. Pull out our little compression spring here and we'll wipe that off with this towel. Alright, this stuff's cleaning it up a little bit. We're getting it nice and shiny. I'm not too concerned about this nut here, but I am going to stick this towel down inside it a little bit and just try to dry it out. and maybe gather any little bit of junk that's down in there as well. What you really want to try to get cleaned up the most on this nut that's part of the body is the hole right here that the nozzle comes out of. All right, we're gonna let that soak in there a little bit longer. Let's move on to the nozzle here, see if we can't get some of this carbon off of this. This is where you don't want to apply that much pressure if you're using the green pad like I am. So I just have it lightly folded over the nozzle, and all I'm doing is spinning it inside this green scuff pad, and it seems to be taking some of this carbon right off of there. Oh yeah, a million times better. Let's see if we can't get the tip of it. That is looking pretty good, my friends. Pretty good. Still a good bit of carbon all crammed in the base of this nozzle here, so I'm just lightly scraping it out with a pick, trying to just clean it up a little bit more before we reinstall this back into the injector body. Next on our list is going to be the pintle that goes into the nozzle. So let's lightly wrap that up and spin it in this scuff pad here. And that is actually looking pretty darn nice. Go ahead and rinse that off inside that. We'll dry it in our blue towel just to make sure we got any debris from the scuff pad off of it. We got our intermediate disc here, which really isn't all that bad, but we're just gonna give it a light scrub. Our compression pin isn't that bad to begin with, so we're just gonna dry that after letting it soak for a few. Put it to the side. Those parts don't really get the carbon on them because they're up in the main body there. It's all the stuff down low with the nozzle and the pintle more or less that gets a lot of the carbon. So our little shim, we're just gonna dry that off because that's way up inside the injector body. So we'll dry that, put it to the side, and see if we can't get a little bit more carbon out of this nut here. The carbon deposits are really caked on this nut here pretty well, so I'm just continuing to scrape it with this pick to make sure that they're all broken free and then wiping it out afterwards. The kerosene's definitely helping to soften it and get it so it'll bust loose, but I do still believe that Coleman lantern fuel will make this stuff more or less just disintegrate and make it easier to wipe out of there with a scuff pad or a paper towel. That looks pretty good for the nut. So let's dry that off and then we can reassemble everything. And now the reassembly is very straightforward and basic. Again, we're just gonna kind of wipe this stuff to make sure that it is free of any debris and that everything is in good condition. Just double check it for any lint or anything like that, because you definitely don't want that stuff going on or inside the injector when you put it back together. But we start with the main body here, and then we drop this little tiny shim in there. I think some of these shims actually have like a little warp or like concaveness to them, and that part would go down into the injector body so that the flat surface rode on the compression spring. This one here is flat on both sides, so if you look at it, you can almost kind of see where the spring rode on it to begin with. So we're just gonna make sure that that side is up and then drop it right back in the hole. Now with any luck, if you drop it straight enough, it'll land nice and flat and you won't have to get in there with a pick and flatten it out. Unlike that time where it landed on its side, so let's try that again. And she's flat, but just to make sure, shine a light. Yep, she's good. After the shim, we're gonna get our compression spring. We're gonna wipe that down just for one final wipe. Make sure, again, no debris, no lint, nothing like that. And then this thing is the same on both ends. So if we look at this, there is no difference in it. It is the same on this end as it is on this end. So we're just gonna go ahead and drop that right down onto our shim and then grab our compression pin. And this has to go in a certain way. So if you look at the compression pin, which goes on next onto the compression spring, you can see that this very end of it is solid, and then this part here is flat. where if you flip it over and look at the other side, you can see that there is actually a hole in this end of it, and then it's kind of concaved. So the flat part of the compression pin goes down onto the compression spring, just like that. Now we can pick up our nozzle. We'll go ahead and give that a wipe. We got our air gun here. We're just gonna blow out the inside of the nozzle a little bit. And I also want to say that you should blow out the inside of the body as well before you start dropping the shim and the compression spring back into the body. But we've got our nozzle all blown out. We got our pintle right here. We're gonna go ahead and stick that back into the nozzle. Gonna wipe down our intermediate disc here, get that a little dried off, free it up of any debris. I can't stress that enough, guys. Make sure that there is no lint or debris or anything like that on these parts when you put it back together. Go ahead and drop our intermediate disc onto the body, pick up our nozzle with our pintle, set that on top of your intermediate disc, and last we're just gonna blow out our little nut here and then put that on, and we are done. Slide that down over everything, screw it down onto the body, and to finish this job, you simply get out your torque wrench, set it to 30 foot-pounds, torque down that nut onto the body there, and you are done. You can see how clean this one here is compared to the one that we did not touch yet. But I am going to go through and clean the rest of these stock injectors up so that they are clean, and maybe if we ever have to use them again, they will be prepared and ready to just go back into the truck in an emergency situation. So there you guys have it. That is it. Like I said in the last video, it's very simple to go ahead and strip your injectors down, pull them apart. There's only a few little parts in there, but make sure you are paying attention to what is coming out of there and the order of the parts as they come out, because they have to go back in that way. And also, if you are going to do this, don't be mixing any injector parts up with other injectors. Make sure that all the parts you took out of injector 1 go back into injector 1, and then injector 1 goes back into the first cylinder, so on and so forth, right on down 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That is how you want to do it. Be very cautious and careful of that, and you will be in good shape. So if you feel that you have any type of issue with your injectors, or the spray pattern might be off, you have a clogged nozzle, go ahead, take a couple hours, pluck those out of the truck, and you can do this here to clean them up, put them back together, torque them down to 30 foot-pounds, and then get them reinstalled and see if that clears up your issue. It definitely should help it and take care of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, enjoyed it enough to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for me on your way out. If you are stopping in for the first time, you're new here, make sure you are hitting the subscribe button and joining the family, because we are going to be getting into more videos like this and breaking down different parts from the truck here in the near future, and you're not going to want to miss that. Plus, we have other things coming up that you won't want to miss either, like the HY35 turbo that we still have to knock that exhaust housing off of so that we can rebuild it. I will see you guys in the next video, hopefully tomorrow. I don't know yet. Peace.